This story is about a human who accidentally introduces dreams to alien students, beings who've never imagined, feared, or fallen in love in their sleep. What starts as curiosity turns into something far bigger and far stranger. Stay to the end, because some mysteries don't live in space, but in our own minds. Lunch on the orbital campus was a cautious affair. No one truly enjoyed the meals, but interspecies cuisine required compromise, and compromise often tasted like damp cardboard soaked in seaweed tea. Garrett sat wedged between two kiravans, 8-foot-tall feathered reptiloids who perpetually radiated the scent of warm citrus, and across from a rotating cast of exchange students from various planetary systems. Forks three-pronged, neutral metal utensils adapted for universal grip clinked gently on composite trays. The usual chatter about enzyme compatibility tests and the unspoken war between breakfast cubes and rehydrated flapjack pouches had just lulled, when Garrett, half laughing to himself, nudged his tray forward and said, "I had a terrifying dream last night about being chased by a giant slice of toast." Silence, immediate, utter. The three-eyed Mikari to his left froze with a glob of protein foam hovering inches from its mouth slit. Forks paused mid-air. Pupils contracted. Breathless stillness cloaked the table. One of the Kiravens turned slightly, his voice smooth and low. "What?" he asked. "Is a dream?" Garrett blinked. "You know dreams, stuff you see when you're asleep, stories in your head." Confusion rippled like static across the table. The Mikari tilted its head. "Our minds cease external input during regenerative rest cycles. Nothing plays," it said, puzzled. "You see things while unconscious?" He set his fork down slowly. "Oh, you guys are in for something." That afternoon's conversation changed the semester, Garrett explained, arms moving like he was sculpting invisible nonsense. Dreams, he said, were mental simulations, sometimes based on real memories, sometimes completely made up. Sometimes you could control them, but usually not. He described the strange ones running endlessly through shifting hallways, teeth falling out, showing up to finals in nothing but mismatched socks, and the floating, leaning forward, spreading your arms, and lifting off like gravity had politely excused itself. The table remained mesmerized, jaws slightly ajar or, in one case, outer mandibles twitching in disbelief. He paused, then glanced around and added, voice dropping half a notch, "And, well, sometimes dreams can get romantic." A few of them leaned in at once, like someone had lowered the gravity over that half of the table. "Romantic?" asked the Kyrevan, feathers slightly puffing. Garrett cleared his throat, like, making love, kissing, touching. "It feels real. You wake up and need a moment to realize it didn't happen. Sometimes it's someone you know, sometimes a stranger, sometimes..." He rubbed the back of his neck. "Sometimes the dream just kind of knows what you want more than you do." He regretted that last part immediately. A pinkish Glarvian blinked one eye at a time as if processing on different channels. "So you experience full emotional and sensory simulations while unconscious, without consent or logic?" "Pretty much, yeah," Garrett said. "Sometimes it's awkward, sometimes it's amazing, and sometimes you fly a jet made of cheese." They were silent for a beat longer. The second Kiravan, who hadn't spoken yet, muttered, "That's deeply unsafe." Garrett grinned. "You get used to it." But they didn't believe him. Not really, not at first. In xenopsychology class the next day, an Uvanu student named Krell timidly raised one of her 3 arms. "Professor, do humans fabricate sensory hallucinations during rest cycles?" The professor, an elderly Terran-literate Tharn named Quol, didn't even blink. "Ah, yes, they call them dreams. Entire fictional worlds crafted by the resting brain. It's unique to humans, as far as we know." Several students gasped. One whispered, "Their brains play while powered down." Another muttered, "And they fall in love in there?" From that day on, Garrett noticed something odd. Whenever he napped in the communal rest pods, at least one alien would quietly shuffle in behind him. Some brought notepads. One tried recording his REM patterns. At first, it was annoying. Then, it became surreal. One afternoon, he stirred from a light nap and spotted an Inari student kneeling beside his pod, eyes wide. "Were you flying?" the Inari asked. "No, I was in line at a DMV made entirely of melted clocks." "Was that enjoyable?" Garrett stared at the ceiling. "No." Weeks passed. The curiosity deepened. A lecture was added to the psychology module, Human One-Aeronautics and Cognitive Disruption Events. Garrett was invited without warning to speak in front of 75 students about dream mechanics. He tried to keep it simple, but every answer triggered 5 new questions. Do you control the content? Not really. Is the sensory input comparable to waking life? Depends. Sometimes it's better. Do you remember them perfectly? No. Sometimes they vanish before you're even fully awake. Do you dream of us? Garrett hesitated. Once. I think. The class flinched collectively. The Tharn professor scribbled frantically with one claw. By midterm, several students had submitted project proposals to the campus ethics board requesting permission to induce dreams in themselves using neurostimulator prototypes. The board denied all applications immediately. Meanwhile, Garrett found himself answering questions in the oddest places. At the hydration fountain, is dreaming dangerous? During laundry hour, if you are wounded in a dream, does your body react? At 2 a.m. outside the cafeteria, you mentioned romantic dreams again in class. Did you mean instinctive mating drives? He had never been asked such intimate questions by so many beings who lacked mouths, genitals, or conceptions of privacy. Still, Garrett played along, partly out of duty, partly because the reactions were addictive. What finally tipped things over was an accidental broadcast. He had agreed reluctantly to wear a neural halo during one nap, just to collect abstract brain activity. He wasn't told the signal was live-fed to a class of comparative neurobiology students. Halfway through a dream involving a stampede of ice cream cone people trying to evict him from a birthday party inside a volcano, his thrashing caused the halo to slip, and suddenly they got images. Not perfect, not vivid, but shapes, colors, emotional tones, flashes. The footage was posted to the intercampus network for academic reference. It trended. Within 2 days, Garrett was famous across 5 campuses. An invitation came from the Galactic Institute of Cognitive Studies on Aluma Prime. He declined, citing an allergic reaction to their atmosphere stabilizers. After that, the whispers got weirder. He's probably dreaming now. Do you think he's in combat or romance? Both, probably, simultaneously. And whenever Garrett so much as yawned, someone, somewhere, would stop and watch with religious focus. Yet amid the scientific frenzy and odd reverence, one fact remained stubborn. They simply couldn't experience dreams, not naturally. The neurostructures weren't there, until something changed. It started with Lorik, a blue-hued Aryan from Sector 10 who had spent a full semester documenting Garrett's sleep patterns. One morning, bleary-eyed and jittering, Lorik approached him and whispered, "Last night, during rest phase, I experienced something. There was a corridor, endless, full of vending machines." Garrett looked up slowly, and whom of them spoke? It asked if I wanted a hug. Garrett's face broke into a grin. "Ooh," he said softly, "you really are in for something." By the end of that week, the vending machine corridor became something of a legend. Lorik had tried to describe it in his project log, a dim hallway lined with ancient human snack dispensers, each displaying images of food items no one could identify, crispy rings, puffed meat cubes, powdered liquid vials, and each one glowing faintly with a soft humming. But what unsettled him most was that the vending machines moved. Not on wheels, they simply shuffled forward. Closer, asking things. Do you require solace? Would you like to relive your birth memory? Press F9 to forget someone. The class discussed it for an hour. Theories abounded: trauma echo, latent cultural infection, Garrett's voice imprint in Lorik's synaptic mesh. The neurobiology department couldn't decide whether it was an accidental dream or a full synthetic hallucination sparked by prolonged human proximity. But for Garrett, it was obvious. "You dreamed," he said, pointing at Lorik with his coffee spoon. "Doesn't matter how weird or awkward, you actually dreamed." Moore wanted to try. The administration disagreed. Artificial induction remained banned, but certain students, especially those who spent time around Garrett, began reporting anomalies during rest cycles: abstract visuals, half-heard voices, emotional stutters. Some woke laughing, some crying. One woke trying to hug a lamp, mistaking it for his deceased grandfather. By mid-semester, Garrett's room was effectively a lab. Not officially, no one called it that, but students filtered in at all hours, some bringing data scanners, others just questions. One Glarvian begged him to narrate his latest dream, live, straight out of sleep. Garrett obliged, groggily recounting a story about climbing a staircase that never ended, while being chased by a swarm of apologetic bees. "And how did it feel?" the Glarvian asked breathlessly. "Jicky." "Philosophical," Garrett mumbled. Then things got stranger. The dreams started spreading. Not to everyone, and not predictably, but there were cases. One student, a soft-spoken Taiyan named True, experienced a string of fragments: a boat made of elbows, a slow-motion musical argument with a coffee mug, a romance with something called a refrigerator priest. He described sensations, heat, longing, motion sickness that had no equivalent in Taiyan physiology. Another, a skelf with no eyes and 3 separate memory systems, experienced time as a liquid pool that someone kept stirring. "They aren't dreams," one ethics supervisor warned. "They're neuroleak phenomena, contagious imagination." But imagination wasn't supposed to spread like pollen. The dean called Garrett in. He arrived in a clean shirt and tried not to look tired, though the truth was he hadn't had a full night's sleep in weeks. "You're affecting the mental hygiene of this institution," the dean said flatly. "I didn't do anything," Garrett replied. "I sleep, they watch." The dean sighed. "And now they dream. Unintentionally, uncontrollably. This violates 5 sections of interspecies autonomy policy." Garrett sat back. "So? You want me to stop sleeping?" The dean pinched the bridge of his nose. "We're placing a temporary restriction on observational napping. No recordings, no direct proximity monitoring. We need time to study this." Garrett nodded. "Okay. But just a heads up, I dream no matter what, and they'll keep asking." The ban didn't stop anything. Instead, it pushed it underground. Study groups morphed into story circles. Students swapped descriptions of their fragments, wondering what they meant. Someone made a chart of recurring symbols. Someone else created a dream glossary. Flying meant freedom. Toilets in public meant shame. Singing teeth remained undecided. Garrett became a reluctant guru. He hosted evening sessions where students brought snacks, actual snacks, not nutrient paste, and listened as he described his most recent dreamscape, a universe made entirely of cardboard where everyone had to solve riddles to peace. But it was the emotional dreams that caused the biggest stir. One night, Garrett spoke softly about a woman with no face who made him feel perfectly safe. He said they never touched, but when he woke, he was sad for hours. The room stayed quiet. Then someone asked, "How can your mind generate affection without a subject?" He didn't know. A week later, Crew confessed she had dreamed about the woman too. That broke everything open. Suddenly, alien students were not just dreaming, but sharing dreams. They began matching symbols, settings, even feelings. Some suspected proximity resonance, others suggested Garrett had become a psychic anchor. The administration panicked. More restrictions followed. Garrett was moved to an isolated wing of the campus. Security drones watched him sleep. Access to his quarters was limited to faculty researchers. The entire psychology module was rewritten. And still, the dreams grew. More students whispered about their night thoughts. Some couldn't sleep without experiencing vivid sensory illusions. One panicked when he awoke and didn't dream. He feared he had been disconnected. Disconnected from what? The professor asked. From the dream stream, he whispered. From the human. Meanwhile, Garrett was restless. In isolation, his dreams turned sharp, fast, less whimsical. He dreamt of running through mazes with mirrors for floors, where every reflection was another version of himself arguing with vending machines about taxes. His chest hurt when he woke. Sometimes he didn't remember where he was. When he was finally allowed limited interaction again, his first visitor was Lorik. "You caused something," Lorik said, eyes shining. "A new cognitive phenomenon. We're not supposed to have inner fictions, but now, some of us don't want to wake up." "That's not good," Garrett muttered. "I disagree," Lorik said. "It's terrifying, but it's beautiful. We didn't know what dreams were. And now they visit us, like stowaways from your mind." Garrett laughed softly, tiredly. "So what now?" Lorik stood. "Now we learn how to live with them." But learning was messy. Some students developed parasocial attachments to their dream figures. Others couldn't tell dream memories from reality. One thought he'd had an entire romantic relationship with a being that didn't exist, and grieved when the dream ended. The psychology department scrambled to provide support frameworks. Garrett proposed a simple method: morning debrief circles, like group therapy. You tell the dream, others listen, then you move on. It worked somewhat, but nothing prepared them for the next event. An Uvanu student named Elzai, known for her meticulous calm and logic, came forward with a dream that didn't fade. She recalled every detail: a moonlit garden, a voice calling her by a name she didn't know she had, a feeling of home, not a place but a person. And then, a moment of connection so vivid, her bioluminescent skin activated mid-sleep. She hadn't just dreamed. She had, somehow, experienced. When Garrett heard, he said quietly, "That's not a dream. That's what we call a lucid connection. Rare. Deep. Sometimes it stays with you." Elsie touched her temple. "I can't stop thinking about it." "You're not supposed to," he said. Word spread. And then, quietly, without announcement, students began doing the unthinkable. They started going to sleep on purpose, not for regeneration, but for discovery. And in time, many of them stopped asking, "What is a dream?" They started asking, "What do dreams want from us?" It started with the drawings. Rough sketches, charcoal smudges on paper that wasn't designed for anything artistic. Notebooks meant for lab logs filled with images. Spirals hovering over oceans. Eyes inside clouds. Doorways with no walls. One was a crude rendering of Garrett, asleep in his rest pod, surrounded by floating orbs marked with glyphs. He found the sketch taped to the outside of his dorm door. No note, just a whisper of graphite on matte white synth sheet. By then he was used to the strange attention. But the images kept appearing on data pads, inside lockers, even burned into cafeteria trays with low-heat laser pointers. Each dreamer had begun interpreting their visions, not just describing them, but mapping them, recreating their structures with obsessive clarity. Some of the drawings showed places Garrett had never seen in his own dreams. Others depicted scenes he had private ones. One night, he dreamed of a train that ran upside down along clouds, filled with passengers who screamed without sound. The next morning, a Glarvian classmate approached him and murmured, "Car 7, red hat, right?" Garrett froze. "How did you—" "Dean asked me to tell you. You're late." After that, he stopped trying to categorize things as coincidence. Sleep studies were reinstated under tighter, controlled circumstances. Official Dreamwatch sessions, 2 hours max. Each participant was paired with a counselor and logged immediate impressions upon waking. They called it Mind Drift Protocol. But the dreams had changed character. They weren't random now, the symbols repeated. Shared elements emerged, a tree with silver bark, a staircase suspended in blackness, a bell tolling underwater. Different students, different species, even different biology, and still, they reported the same visions. Some patterns Garrett recognized. Some terrified him. He was sleeping less. His own dreams had taken on weight, solid, burdensome layers. He'd fall into scenarios too real, being interrogated by a version of himself with no eyes, finding a museum dedicated to his childhood memories, dancing with a shadow that spoke only in trivia about Earth's extinct birds. And every time, just before waking, a voice would whisper, "You started this. What did you think would happen?" He mentioned it during a debrief circle. Half the room nodded. They had heard the same voice. Meanwhile, the ethics board grew concerned. "This is no longer about cognitive discovery," they wrote in their internal report. "This is a migration event. Human dreaming is no longer confined to human neurology. It behaves like a symbiotic parasite, non-invasive but persistent." That term parasite irked Garrett, but deep down, he understood the worry. Dreams were taking root where they didn't belong, not just being observed. They were growing, coiling into thought patterns, embedding into cultural behaviors. Several species had started using the word dream casually, without quotation marks. A few began to craft their own myths around recurring dream figures. One religion sprouted from the symbol of a floating ladder. Worse still, some students couldn't sleep without dreaming now. Their brains rejected pure regeneration cycles. When denied dreams, they grew agitated, disconnected. Some became emotionally volatile. Medical staff coined the term waneric dependency. They built protocols, sleep-masking drugs, neural dampeners, but results were uneven. One of Garrett's closest friends, a gentle stealth named Moru, was placed in enforced wakefulness for 70 hours. The resulting breakdown triggered a full lockdown on her wing. She wept for a dream lover that never existed, begged to be returned to a reality where they still danced in a city of lavender fog. "I know he's not real," she whispered to Garrett afterward, "but it felt real. That should count for something." He had no argument. Then, an entirely new development occurred. An alien named Dren, from a race called the Harketi Stoic, logic-based beings with crystalline neural nets, walked into Garrett's room uninvited. He sat without asking. "I dreamed," Dren said. Garricus nodded. "No, I remembered." Garrett tilted his head. "What do you mean?" "My people do not forget. Our memories are absolute. But this was not a memory. It was a past that never happened." He placed a small cube on Garrett's desk. It glowed faintly. "I built that in the dream," Dren said. "A music device. I don't know how. When I woke, I sketched it, then I built it. Here. It plays songs I've never heard, but I remember feeling them." The cube chirped once, then played a haunting melody, echoing softly like wind through empty cathedrals. Garrett leaned forward, stunned. Dreams weren't just shaping thoughts, they were crossing back into waking invention, a full feedback loop. Other objects followed. A bracelet carved with unknown numbers. A drink recipe that evoked emotional euphoria. A plant hybrid no one remembered cultivating. All born in dreams, all reconstructed after waking. The faculty called it cognitive backloop. Garrett called it something else. Dream gravity. Once you dreamed, it pulled on you. And the more who dreamed, the stronger the pull became. By now, students didn't just watch Garrett nap. They followed his sleep cycles. Some even tried synchronizing theirs to match his. A few claimed to have visited the same dream space as him, though the details varied wildly. One said she met Garrett inside a museum, arguing with a wall about taxes. Another described standing on a mountain with him, staring at a second moon. One swore she watched him walk into a mirror, leaving behind only the echo of a laugh. Gary kept denying these events. "That's not possible," he insisted. "Dreams don't sync like that." But he was no longer sure. By now he rarely slept deeply. When he did, he woke shaken. He started writing down his dreams in code, burying the pages in locked drawers. Because some of them ended the same way, with the image of a vast field, filled with sleeping figures, all connected by thin golden threads, and in the center of the field, a throne made of clocks, and a version of himself watching, not dreaming, controlling. He hadn't told anyone. Not yet. Then came the event the campus now refers to carefully, officially, as the Ripple. One afternoon, a junior technician assigned to scan Garrett's vitals during a monitored nap fell asleep at his station, unintentionally, without neural interference. When he woke, he began to scream. It wasn't pain, not confusion, pure, unfiltered grief. "I remember something," he said. "Someone died. I don't know who, but I held them. I felt it." They sedated him, but 3 others soon reported identical experiences. All claimed to have dreamt of the same figure, a woman in white, dying beneath a willow tree, under stars shaped like triangles. None of them had ever seen a willow tree before. Garrett listened in silence. The field, the threads, the woman. Something was moving inside their collective dreams. Something that didn't come from Garrett, but had found him, found all of them. Something that used emotion like a currency and memory like architecture. And he wasn't sure it could be stopped. But he also knew something else, something he couldn't ignore. They had never meant for any of this to happen. All he had said was, "I dreamed of toast." And now entire species mourned the deaths of people they had never met because of dreams. The campus was quiet now. The excited murmurs had faded. No more observation pods filled with curious aliens clutching notepads. No more dream drawings on the walls. No more debates between faculty about waneric bleed. The administration had suspended all formal dream research indefinitely. What had started as an innocent lunch table curiosity had spread too fast, too deep. Students were still dreaming, but few spoke of it. It felt sacred now, private. Even Garrett, who once described dreams as if they were snack recipes, had gone still. He hadn't shared a dream in over a month, not since the Ripple. He barely remembered falling asleep that last time, but he remembered the moment he woke up, sitting upright in the infirmary, sweat-soaked, heart-pounding, convinced something had just touched his hand. It hadn't been real, he knew that, but the feeling remained. Across the room, Lorik was waiting, quiet, patient, his feathers slightly dimmer than usual. "You felt it," Lorik said softly. Garrett nodded. "Not just a dream, something else." Lorik tapped his tablet. 76 students reported the willow field. 12 reported the woman. 8 remembered her dying. 4, he looked up, said you were the one holding her when she died. Garrett didn't answer. "Who is she?" Lorik asked. "I don't know," Garrett said, and then more truthfully, "but I think she's important to all of us." Later that evening, Garrett requested a meeting with the campus psychology committee. He didn't ask. He demanded. He wore a wrinkled shirt, mismatched socks, and he hadn't slept in 2 days. They let him in. "I think dreams are evolving," he said without preamble. "Not just replicating, not just leaking into others. They're learning from us, from the ones who sleep." A panelist leaned forward. "You're saying the dreams are sentient?" "No, but I think they've become a collective construct, built from the shared experiences of dozens of minds now. We seeded the storm. Now, it's got wind of its own. And this woman?" Garrett exhaled through his nose. "I think she's a metaphor, a nexus, a placeholder for loss, maybe, or memory, something we all understand differently but which our minds render with the same image." Silence, until another member asked, "So what do we do?" "We accept that this happened, that this will keep happening, and we don't treat it like an anomaly or a pathogen. Dreams aren't dangerous, fear of them is. He wasn't eloquent, he was tired, but something about his words stuck. A week later, the university lifted the moratorium. Slowly. Dream sharing was no longer studied, but it was supported. A new campus facility was opened, not a lab, but a sanctuary. Soft light, zero electronics, no data capturing tools. A place to rest, to share, if you wanted. No one recorded anything, no one logged findings. They called it the Drift Room. Garrett visited once. He found Lorik there, sketching again. This time, the drawing wasn't of vending machines or floating ladders. It was a circle of students sitting under a vast willow tree, each with a thread in their hands, all tied to something off the page. Garrett sat beside him. "Do you still dream?" Lorik asked. "Every night." Lorik smiled. "What about?" Garrett leaned back, eyes closed. "Last night I was a planet, orbiting a star shaped like a cat. The night before, I was a sentence, trying to finish itself." "And the woman?" Garrett opened his eyes. "She hasn't come back." Lorik nodded. "Maybe she finished what she came to do." "I don't think she was ever real," Garrett murmured. "But she mattered." At that, Lorik folded the sketch and tucked it away. Then she was real enough. Final exams came and went. Life resumed, mostly. The cafeteria served less jelly grain stew. The dream glossary disappeared from public access. But every now and then a student would glance at another across the quad and ask, "Did you fly last night?" No one laughed anymore. It wasn't weird. It was part of the culture now. Not universal, not mandatory, just present. And one day, quietly, an Uvanu student slipped a folded paper into Garrett's locker. On it, a drawing of him napping, surrounded by silver trees under a lavender sky. A note at the bottom read, "Thank you for showing us what it means to imagine." Garrett didn't reply. He didn't need to. That night, for the first time in weeks, he slept deeply. He dreamt of a field, not full of sleepers, but of dreamers, each tethered to a sky filled with windows instead of stars. Each thread shimmered, tugged gently by possibility, and in the center stood the woman. Not dying, not crying, smiling. Then she said something simple, something soft, something that echoed across whatever boundaries separated one mind from another. "You're not alone." Garrett woke with tears in his eyes and a strange warmth in his chest. He didn't try to analyze it. He just got up, got dressed, and joined the others for breakfast. As always, a few alien students glanced his way as he walked in, forks halfway to their mouths. Garrett just smiled and said, "You will not believe what I dreamed last night." And this time, nobody looked confused. They leaned in. They wanted to hear it. They were ready.